A high school senior about to graduate, a postcard-perfect Caribbean beach, and what seemed like an innocent farewell to youth. But just hours later, paradise turned into a nightmare. As the sun rose over the island of Aruba, an 18-year-old girl had vanished without a trace, and to this day, no one can say for sure what really happened to Natalee Holloway. On May 24, 2005, Natalee Holloway, an 18-year-old blonde girl from Mountain Brook, Alabama, flew to the island of Aruba with over 120 classmates for a graduation trip. It was a well-earned reward after 4 years of hard work, a 5-day getaway to a tropical paradise. With its warm weather, crystal-clear water, and easygoing atmosphere, Aruba was seen as a safe, friendly destination for American tourists. Natalee was the kind of student every parent is proud of. Smart, likable, well-behaved, and accepted into the University of Alabama on a full scholarship to study medicine. She didn't smoke, didn't use drugs, and had rarely gotten into any trouble. But this trip was different. There were no official teachers or chaperones, just a few parents along for the ride. And they couldn't possibly supervise over 100 teenagers aged 17 to 18, all eager to let loose one last time before stepping into adult life. For the first 4 days, everything seemed normal. Parties, alcohol, bars, beaches, and short-lived flirtations. But on the night of May 29th, the final night before flying back to the U.S., things began to slip out of control. Around 1:30 a.m. on May 30th, Natalee was last seen leaving the popular bar Carlos and Charlie's in downtown Orangestead. According to friends, she was very drunk. Her head was swaying, her steps unsteady, but she was still alert enough to leave with a stranger, Joran van der Sloot, a 17-year-old Dutch teen living in Aruba who was often seen hanging around tourist bars. Joran wasn't alone. His 2 friends, Deepak and Satish Kalpoe, were also in the silver Honda Civic that picked Natalee up. When her friends last saw her, Natalee was sitting in the car, smiling and talking, and seemed okay. She never returned to the hotel. The next morning, as the group prepared to leave for the airport, Natalee was missing. Her hotel room showed no signs of disturbance. Her suitcase was still there. Her phone and passport were left on the desk. Natalee's mother, Beth Holloway, was notified immediately. Less than 24 hours later, she was on a flight to Aruba, carrying a fear and panic no words could describe. Beth and the Aruban police began investigating immediately, and on the very first day, they identified the last 3 people seen with Natalee, Joran van der Sloot and the Kalpoe brothers. At first, all 3 said they had driven Natalee to the beach near the Holiday Inn where she was staying and dropped her off around 2 a.m. They claimed she was drunk, but wanted to go back to her hotel and that nothing unusual happened. But that story didn't hold up for long. A few days later, their statements changed. This time, they claimed they had taken her to the California Lighthouse, a remote spot on the north end of the island, and left her there because she wanted to look at the ocean alone. That only raised more suspicion, since the area was far from the main tourist zone and no one sober would want to be there alone at 2 in the morning. Public attention exploded. American media swarmed Aruba. 24-hour news outlets like Fox News, CNN, and NBC reported non-stop. Natalee Holloway's face, blonde hair, sweet smile, innocent look, was everywhere on national television. Aruba, once a peaceful vacation spot, had become the center of an international investigation. On June 9th, over 10 days after Natalee disappeared, Aruban police searched Joran's home. They seized his computer, clothing, and even a mattress from his bedroom. That same day, Joran and the Kalpoe brothers were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping and murdering Natalee. But there was still no hard evidence, no body, no DNA, no witnesses, just constantly changing stories, vague details, and an 18-year-old girl who vanished in paradise. With the 3 main suspects now in custody, Joran van der Sloot and brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpoe, The investigation entered a critical phase, but any hope for a confession or solid evidence quickly dissolved. What followed was a spiral of conflicting statements, deception, and murky investigative moves that made an entire nation wonder, does justice really exist? From the very first interrogations, Joran kept changing his story. At first, he claimed he left Natalee at the Holiday Inn. Then he said they went to the California lighthouse, where they talked for a while before the Calpo brothers came back to pick him up. In another version, Joran said Natalee suddenly fell ill, then insisted he left her alive on the beach. On yet another day, he claimed she was so drunk she passed out. Every time his story changed, the Aruba police had to start over. They confronted Joran with Deepak and Satish. Both brothers also gave conflicting statements. None of them aligned with Joran, or even with each other. Instead of truth, they were playing a game, and it seemed like Joran was the one controlling it. When police searched the Calpo home, they found nothing significant. No trace of Natalee, no blood, no physical evidence proving she had ever been there. The silver Honda Civic they used that night was sent for forensic testing, but it revealed no DNA, no hair, nothing that could be linked to Natalee. No evidence, no body, and slowly, time became the investigation's worst enemy. Under pressure from the media and the American community in Aruba, authorities kept extending the suspect's detention, but each extension drew criticism from defense attorneys and the suspects' families. After nearly 30 days in custody, the Calpo brothers were released. Joran remained behind bars a little longer, but was eventually released as well, due to insufficient grounds for prosecution. By September 2005, 3 months after Natalee vanished, the case officially hit a dead end. No body, no murder weapon, no concrete evidence. Aruban law did not allow indefinite detention without clear criminal charges. All 3 suspects were free. But Natalee Holloway's mother, Beth Holloway, refused to give up. She appeared on every major American news show, Larry King Live, Nancy Grace, and many others. Each time she held up a photo of her daughter and urged the public to pressure the Aruban authorities. For mothers who had lost a child, she became a powerful, grieving, and relentless voice. Meanwhile, in Aruba, rumors were everywhere. Some claimed Natalee had died from a drug overdose. Others said she'd been taken aboard a yacht and sold into human trafficking. No one knew what was real and what was false, and in the shadows, Joran van der Sloot alone held the truth, if he truly knew what had happened. In 2006, Joran published a book titled The Zaak bin Natalee Holloway, translated as The Case of Natalee Holloway. In the book, he continued to insist he was innocent, claiming that Natalee had left him on the beach and that he had no idea what happened afterward. The book sparked outrage in the US, but Joran lived comfortably in the Netherlands, where he'd enrolled in university. His freedom, however, wouldn't last. In 2008, in a strange twist, renowned Dutch crime reporter Peter R. de Vries set up a sting operation. He had an associate pose as a new friend of Joran's and secretly recorded their conversation. In the video, Joran casually stated, "She passed out on the beach. I panicked. I called a friend, he came with a boat, and we got rid of her body." The footage shocked the world, but under questioning, Joran denied it all, claiming he had just made up a story to impress his new friend. Dutch and Aruban law did not allow secretly recorded conversations to be used as the sole basis for criminal charges, especially without supporting evidence. Once again, Natalee Holloway remained missing, and once again, Joran slipped through the cracks of the legal system. What no one could have predicted was this. Just 2 years later, Joran would be involved in another case, this time with a confirmed murder. May 30th, 2010, exactly 5 years after Natalee Holloway vanished, in another country, Peru, a new murder took place. The victim, a beautiful, vibrant 21-year-old college student named Stephanie Flores. She was found dead in a hotel room in Lima, beaten and suffocated. The killer? A 22-year-old Dutch man with the last name van der Sloot. It was Joran. He fled Peru to Chile just days after the murder. But this time, he wasn't as lucky as he had been in Aruba. Joran was arrested only weeks later and extradited back to Peru to face justice. During interrogation, Joran confessed to murder for the first time, but not Natalee's. He claimed he killed Stephanie because she had looked through his laptop and found information about the Holloway case. He became angry. He attacked. He killed. Joran was sentenced to 28 years in a Peruvian prison. When the news reached the U.S., the Holloway family was devastated. They knew the man who had last been with their daughter had gone on to kill another young woman. But with no body and no charges in the Aruba case, they still couldn't hold Joran accountable for Natalee. In the years that followed, many tried to break the long silence. In 2016, the Oxygen Network produced a documentary series on the Holloway case. Natalee's father, Dave Holloway, along with a private investigator, had been working quietly for years. In one shocking episode, they announced the discovery of human remains at a location believed to be Natalee's burial site. But DNA testing crushed those hopes. The bones didn't match Natalee. There was no breakthrough. And once again, the story fell silent. Until 2023. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that Joran van der Sloot would be extradited to the United States, not for murder, but for extortion. In 2010, just before killing Stephanie Flores, Joran had contacted the Holloway family's attorney with an offer. I'll reveal the location of Natalee's body for $250,000. The family agreed to pay $25,000 up front, but Joran led them to a property completely unrelated to the case, then quickly fled to South America. That act, cross-border fraud, was enough to prosecute Joran in the U.S. In 2023, he was extradited from Peru to Birmingham, Alabama. For the first time, Joran van der Sloot stood before an American court. And there, something no one expected, he confessed. In a sworn statement over 20 pages long, filed in U.S. federal court, Joran van der Sloot admitted to killing Natalee Holloway. He said that after the two left the bar on the night of May 30th, 2005, they walked along a beach in northern Aruba. There, Natalee refused to have sex with him. He became angry, then kicked her in the head. Natalee lost consciousness, and in his chilling confession, he wrote, "I kicked her again, harder. Then I dragged her body into the water and pushed it out to sea." He didn't cry, he didn't show regret, he didn't apologize. And while murder committed in Aruba can't be prosecuted in the U.S., his confession was made public, bringing nearly 2 decades of speculation, theories, and heartbreak to a close. Beth Holloway, Natalee's mother, spoke to the press shortly after the hearing. She said, "Finally, I know the truth, and the truth is what I needed. Natalee is gone, but now it will never be a question again." With that statement, the case of Natalee Holloway was officially closed on legal record. Though her body was never found, the truth was finally told by her killer. Joran returns to Peru to finish serving his sentence for killing Stephanie Flores. Afterwards, he may be extradited back to the U.S. to face additional prison time for federal extortion charges, potentially adding decades to his sentence. But perhaps the greatest sentence of all is that the silence was broken. Natalee Holloway, 18 years old, vanished on a summer night in Aruba. No one heard a scream, no one witnessed the final moment. But now the truth has been written, in the killer's own words. No more doubt, no more lies. Only a brutal lesson for all of us. Always pay attention to the smallest signs, the changes in someone's story, the cold reactions after someone goes missing. Because sometimes the killer doesn't run. They stand right there, in the crowd, and smile. If this case moved you, and you believe stories like Natalee's deserve to be told with truth and respect, Subscribe to our channel for more real investigations, real victims, and the facts that matter. We bring light to the cases that others forget. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter, because behind every name, there's a story. And behind every story, a truth waiting to be uncovered.